Trax presents the most powerful sport on earth, the Renegades TNT Monster Truck Challenge. Trax is brought to you by the heartbeat of America, today's Chevy truck.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Trax. I'm Richard Leake, joined by Army Armstrong, where tonight we have a double shot of action. More about that in just a moment. First, though, we are in the beautiful Gulf Coast Coliseum, Biloxi, Mississippi, for the Renegades TNT Monster Truck Challenge. And Army, coming out first to compete is going to be Dennis Anderson and Gravedigger. Qualifying is over. Gravedigger looked awfully good in qualifying, despite the fact that he blew a tire.
Well, he blew a tire. The crew had no problem. They got that back together okay. Dennis Anderson, we've been talking about it all year long. The black cloud's been floating over him. This might be the night he's going to turn it around. He really believes that he's going to be able to turn this thing around, Richard. And really, when you're this involved in the sport, you better believe in yourself.
So we've got monster truck racing, but also we're going to go to Louisville, Kentucky for the championship tractor pull. It'll be the 10,200-pound pro stock tractors in competition.
Well, the pro stockers, again, one of the crowd favorites in Louisville, Kentucky. This win means something. You got bragging rights for the whole year if you can win one in Louisville.
So a double shot of action tonight from TNT Motorsports. We're going to be back in just a moment to start the quarterfinal action of the Renegades TNT Monster Truck Challenge. It's coming your way next on Trax and ESPN. And welcome back to Trax in Biloxi, Mississippi. There you see Wild Hare, driven by Bob Breen out of Jefferson City, Missouri. He is going to be taking on Dennis Anderson and Gravedigger in our first quarterfinal matchup. As a matter of fact, first round action has been completed. And let's run down the pairings as the quarterfinals get ready to get started. It'll be Mad Dog, one of the Breen boys, taking on Bigfoot and Andy Brass. Then Stomper with Marvin Smith takes on Gary Porter and Carolina Crusher. We'll follow that up with the national champion Rod Litzow, USA 1 against Bennett Clark and Clydesdale. So it ought to be a heck of a race, and let's get it started, Army, with the bad Breen boy, Wild Hare against Gravedigger and Dennis Anderson.
Bob Breen drew the baddest of the bad tonight. Dennis Anderson seems to be on a roll. Look at the air. Anderson just makes it look smooth.
Dennis Anderson and Gravedigger is back in a big way. You know, a black cloud has been hanging over his head. He continues to break down, but what an awesome display of power here in the replay.
Richard, you talk about a black cloud. He just flew through that crowd. You see the altitude he had on that run.
Dennis Anderson, 1,800 horsepower. The fans absolutely love the Gravedigger in Biloxi, Mississippi. And they also love the guy you're going to see next. We are talking about none other than the original monster truck, Bigfoot, with its driver, Andy Brass.
Richard, everywhere you go, everybody knows Bigfoot. And you're in the sport, everybody wants to beat Bigfoot. This truck has never done that. They're both out of the Show Me State of Missouri. John Bream's been in this sport a long time. He's beat almost everybody in the sport. However, the one truck that has always crossed the tape in front of him has always been blue and had Bigfoot written on the side.
All right, this will be John Breen, the Mad Dog Chevrolet Blazer, up against the Bigfoot Ford of Andy Brass, waiting for the green light. There it is.
Both of them lead real good. Bream a little bit out of shape, takes an attack. Bigfoot goes on. John Breen was going after him, Richard.
Army, I've noticed in both of our quarterfinal races thus far, these trucks are getting a lot of air between the bottom of them and the track.
Boy, it's amazing. The ramps they're going off of really have a lot of angle to them, Richard.
And here comes a guy that is really coming on strong. Talking about Gary Porter. Out of Wadesboro, North Carolina, it's the Carolina Crusher Chevrolet. Gary is probably one of the top 5 drivers in America as he takes on another top 5. That is Stomper, the Chevrolet, starving Marvin Smith out of Arnold, Missouri.
All the Chevrolet people are going to love this one. Stomper going against the Carolina Crusher. Now remember, we're down here on the beautiful Gulf Coast. We're less than a half a block away from the actual coast itself. Gearing these engines and tuning these engines, so very important. We're going to watch Porter to see if maybe he might be a little bit wrong on his...
Oh, great race.
He looks good. No, he's all right.
We have got a dead heat, Army. A great
race.
It was
close. I have no idea from my angle who won that shot.
Guys, we're going to have to see a replay of this one. It was a dead heat at the finish line. Let's see if we can stop the cameras right here to try to determine a winner. Coming across. There it is right there. Gary Porter, Carolina Crusher wins it on a replay, a photo finish, a nice win for Porter.
I tell you, Richard, this guy is going to win one of these events sooner or might be tonight.
And look who's coming out next. It is the favorite in Biloxi, Mississippi, the defending Renegade TNT National Champion, Rowdy Rod Litzow out of Spring Lake Park, Minnesota, USA 1 Chevrolet, facing Bennett Clark, Powder Springs, Georgia, the Clydesdale Bennett with his black cowboy hat on. That's because he's a former professional rodeo bull rider.
Right now, he's got the bull by the horns in the form of the USA 1, red, white, and blue, True Value Hardware Chevrolet. Rod Litzow, I believe one of the premier drivers in the sport, working a left lane to perfection, comes over the jump, a lot of air, smooth as smooth can be, and just bounces right off the end with that 13,000-pound monster truck.
Awesome power for Rod Litzow, USA 1. He wins it, moves into the semifinals, and when we come back, it'll be side-by-side, semifinal and final round action from Biloxi, Mississippi on Power Trax and ESPN. T Motorsports welcomes you back to Power Trax. We are inside the Gulf Coast Coliseum for more monster truck racing at semifinal time, Army, and what a whale of a matchup we've got coming. It is Bigfoot with Andy Brass, the original monster truck, taking on the most powerful monster truck in the world, Dennis Anderson and Gravedigger.
Richard, the people in Biloxi, Mississippi are going to have a chance to see a war right now. Anderson trying to find a combination. Has he found it? We don't know. He's working his way step by step by step. We told the story. Horsepower, no problem. The problem is braking. Meanwhile, sitting next to him, one of the most reliable trucks on the tour, Andy Brass and Bob Chandler's Bigfoot.
Now, we're on a very short track, Army. Gravedigger, obviously the most powerful of the two. Is that an advantage or disadvantage?
I think it would be an advantage. The driving technique is going to be different. Notice Gravedigger wants to get out. Okay, there you go.
Look out! Gravedigger wins it! Gravedigger wins it! Dennis Anderson has pulled off the upset over Bigfoot.
Anderson looked like an interior lineman. He got that nose down, and he went after it, and he took the win.
We've got to look at that again. Watch Gravedigger. He walks it over the cars, and then he almost puts it on his nose.
You know, Dennis Anderson must have a little bit of kamikaze in him, Richard. To drive like that is awesome. And you've got to remember, he has to drive different than everybody in the sport because of the horsepower and the engine location.
Unbelievable power, an unbelievable show by Gravedigger. The crowd absolutely loves it. And this makes for another great semifinal matchup. Two Chevrolets, one of them the defending national champion. That one right there, the red, white, and blue of USA 1 and Rod Litzow versus the yellow and orange of Gary Porter and Carolina Crusher.
Well, Richard, already the people in Biloxi are going to get a treat. Gravedigger goes to the final for the first time this year. Who's he going to be going against? It's going to be a Chevrolet. It'll be an all-Chevrolet final. The question is, which Chevrolet? Porter comes out of Carolinas with a brand new 89 Chevrolet going against the current national champion Litzow in Ever Jasmer Chevrolet. This is going to be a toss-up. I would not want to have to call this one.
Well, getting lined up. The winner now, remember, will take on Gravedigger for the championship. Here we go.
Oh, left lane, hole shot by the USA 1. And once again, you notice when he bounces over the finish line, it just seems to settle with him. That's some good driving.
An easy win for Rod Litzow, USA 1, the Chevrolet. That makes for an interesting championship. It'll be USA 1 and Rod Litzow against Gravedigger and Dennis Anderson. Before we get to that, though, Army has a special feature about the track these guys run on here in Biloxi, Mississippi, and the setup of the cars. Army spent time earlier today with our track builder.
One of the most unique people in this sport is the man that actually builds the track that these monster trucks compete on. Standing with me right now is Alan Jackson, who's president of a company known as Track Builders Incorporated. Alan, can you tell us exactly what goes into the construction of these monster truck courses?
Well, really, the first thing we take in consideration is the length of the building. The longer the building, the more cars we use, and the less we put in the dirt in the ramps so they don't get quite as tall.
Okay, now, there's basically two types of obstacles they're going to go over. Right after every starting line, there's a hill. I'm going to call it a hill. And then they got a little bit of a space, and they run and jump on the cars. Can you tell us what determines how high and how steep these hills are and how many cars you're going to be using?
Well, it's really the length of the building. The shorter the building, the steeper we make the ramps so they spend their time in the air and don't get up near as much speed.
Why do you want them to spend more time in the air in a short building?
Well, these guys are getting such big motors that if they just run on top of the cars, they'd get up so much speed when they come off they couldn't stop.
Okay, the cars themselves. Now, standing behind us, they look like they're junk. They are junk cars. But they're still, even though they're beat up pretty bad, there's certain things that you do to each car in the front and the rear of it and also in the middle to keep some kind of a support. Could you explain that to us?
Yes, to keep from getting holes. When we first started, well, we had one that fell in a hole and turned over right on the car, so we started putting straw in each seat to hold the top up so it wouldn't create a hole. And then we got the idea to put tires in the trunks. So we put 3 tires in each trunk to hold the trunks up, and if they haven't got motors in them, we put 3 tires underneath the hoods to hold the hoods up, so there won't be any holes for their wheels to land in and break off.
All right, the showdown is set for the championship here. It is going to be USA 1. Rod Litzow, 28-year-old defending national champion from Spring Lake Park, Minnesota, against that gentleman right there. Grave digger, Dennis Anderson, also 28. He's out of Chesapeake, Virginia. That grave digger stands 10 foot 5 inches tall. It weighs 13,000 pounds. It's got 1,800 horsepower.
And it's going to the finals for the first time this year. He's been working long and hard to get to this point. Then to his right is going to be a man that's been there many times. But believe me, Dennis Anderson will not be intimidated, and USA 1 knows it. Look at the attack. He comes out on. What a run! Anderson takes his first win, Richard.
Dennis Anderson has done it. His first win of 1989 at Army. As we look at a replay, he did it with sheer horsepower.
What he does, he attacks the first ramp, comes over, gets the front wheels up, and actually noses over the finish line. I told you, he's got to drive 180 degrees from everybody else, and it works.
Our congratulations to Dennis Anderson and Gravedigger. They have won the championship in Biloxi, Mississippi. And when we come back with more of Power Tracks, it's off to Louisville, Kentucky for the championship tractor pull and the 10,200-pound pro stock tractors. Coming up next on Power Tracks.